CMQ investors, we have to talk about Facebook's earnings call, their earnings report that just came out. I read it in entirety. I also read the earnings call transcript. I think it's important that I just not worry that someone at Facebook gets offended by what I say. And I want to be able to say it the way I would say it, if I was talking to a close friend. If you're not a close friend, you can be close to being a close friend by becoming a subscriber, by the way. Just hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. I promise I'm very committed to delivering extreme value to you as a subscriber in terms of just investing content that is packed with wisdom that's proven, wisdom that works, and content that I don't think really exists on YouTube, at least not for my research, because I've just listened to a guy talk about Teledoc for 17 minutes and he literally said nothing. He's just like, yeah, so Teledoc, it's just his cadence. I was just hooked. Maybe I should just say nothing, but I'm going to actually say a lot here, and I'm going to say a lot of facts. I'm going off the reports here. I'm not basing this on my feelings, but I will share my feelings that have come from looking at the facts and knowing what I know. So long-term, I'm a long-term investor. If you want to light your money on fire, buy a bunch of Facebook stock, put in your portfolio, and don't look at it for 10 years. If you want to just light money on fire. Now, it could do okay. Facebook's a strong, big business, but its best days are over. Objectivity needs to be part of the toolkit or part of the attribute set. Every investor who's going to do well as a long-term investor, if you want to have any shot of being the Warren Buffett of your generation, you need to be objective. You need to be so objective that it offends people, but you're not actually saying anything offensive because you're just being objective. Facebook's best days are over. They're in the past. They can relive the glory days. Remember when advertisers would give us all their budget and then they'd say, how do we spend more money with you? Those were great days. Those days are over. Tim Cook showed up at the party and said, hey guys, this is canceled. It's over. That's what happened with this iOS privacy thing. Revenue growth, let's get to the bottom line, or not even the bottom line, the top line. Revenue growth up 7% year over year, comparing Q1 versus Q1. We're starting from a base of around 26 billion. So 7%, that's a big, they made about another $2 billion. So I don't want to just act like it's no big deal. Expenses were up quite a bit. I think 31 or 33%. Earnings were down 18% year over year. Comparing the quarters, net income went from 9.5 billion in 2021 to in Q1 2021 to 7.5 billion in Q1 2022. So we know why they're investing very aggressively in the metaverse. It's not like Mark Zuckerberg's, out throwing parties and doing weird stuff all of a sudden. It's a very well-run business. I have a lot of respect for what they've built, but you know what? The competitive landscape has changed. It's a new day. It's a new day in the digital ad game. Remember back in the day? Yeah, those days are over. So what do I make of this? Let me tell you what was said that I thought was interesting, that I don't think anyone's really picked apart in the way that I can pick it apart. Let's see what you think of this. So first and foremost, everyone wants to know how, are people using Reels? Not surprisingly, Reels are now more than 20% of the time that people spend on Instagram, they're spending with Reels. And video overall makes up 50%, 50 of the time that people spend on Facebook. Just a natural shift to video, and Facebook is seeing that in their numbers, and they've done a good job getting fast adoption of the Reels format. Now, one downside of the Reels format, you probably hear people say, well, it's not monetizing as fast, or it's going to take some time to monetize. That is totally true. But historically anyway, stories monetize at lower levels, right? So if people are spending more time with Reels, that means they're not spending more time on Facebook overall. They're choosing Reels over maybe the feed. Like, let's say they spend, I'm making numbers up, like a couple less minutes on the feed now. Well, that's not good, because that's where those more expensive ads live. So just second order effects matter. It's good to just call that out. But the real big shift here, and this is, I think, just really interesting, because I have studied Facebook very closely over the years. Mark Zuckerberg talked about how that our Facebook and Instagram feeds should start showing us more content from people that we don't know. Currently, let's use Instagram as an example. I have the account Charlie Munger Quotes. Some of you have found this YouTube channel through that page. I started it 2 years ago because I was locked down in New York City during COVID, and there was a way for me to share the wisdom of Charlie Munger that's helped me so much. So if you follow that page, you're going to hopefully see my updates in your feed. or you will see, my avatar in stories. You could tap on it, see my stories. If someone doesn't follow that page, they might start to see Charlie Munger quotes. That would be something that didn't really happen a lot before. It happens a little bit now, but expect to see more and more of that. Now, Facebook champions this as like, hey, look what we can do with our AI, and we can, recommend better content to people and all this. And it's partially true. But to me, it's a sign that, look, people, meaning you and I, our friends, our family, we're just not sharing as much, right? We're not making as much. Social networks are user-generated content systems by definition. Us, the users, we're not generating as much content anymore. And, that's not good. I'm not going to, start to say that, another reason to freak out. I don't want to be like these other YouTubers who just push panic all day. But it doesn't make me panic, but it's interesting. That's all it is. It's just interesting, something to pay attention to. Mark Zuckerberg did say the content from friends and family and people you follow is the, quote, most valuable, engaging, and differentiated content. So the question I would obviously want an answer to, or if I could get an answer to, I'd like it is, well, if that's the most valuable, engaging, and differentiated content, why are you going to start showing me stuff that's not the most valuable, engaging, and differentiated content? Can I get that everywhere else? Isn't Facebook and Instagram and when I say Facebook, let's just include everything. WhatsApp, Messenger, isn't that part of the appeal, right? Like I can't get this stuff anywhere else. Well, maybe people are making TikToks instead of Reels. That's not saying that's the trend. I'm not basing that on any data in front of me, but just something to think about. Lots of talk about making ads more personalized. Obviously, that is a primo concern over at Facebook because the ads they're not doing as well. People are still buying them, but they're not able to make as much money on them because they don't work as well. And I've gotten into the details of that in previous videos. If you're interested, I won't go down that path now. I want to keep us on topic, but the ads are less personalized. That's a problem. So what did stick out to me is that Sheryl Sandberg noted that they're evolving their ad systems to do more with less data. I don't understand how that necessarily works because data is the lifeblood of machine learning. And so when I look at any sort of situation involving data, the best data, not all data is created equal. So Facebook has had great data. They have declarative data. They have big data. There's lots of it. People use Facebook every day, so it's fresh, right? Like if I'm trying to predict if you're going to buy a T-shirt, and I know that you, and this is just a made-up example, but if I know that you've bought a T-shirt recently, not 7 years ago because I bought your information on some sketchy database. I've never done that, by the way. But that happens. That data is not as valuable to me. I can't do as much with it. I can't make a model that is as good at predicting what you might do, and therefore personalizing a better ad for you, or recommending a better ad that's more personalized, more targeted, that you will be more likely to act in the way that the advertiser actually wants you to act. That's a big change. But I don't understand how they're going to do it with less data. But this next clue here might give us a little bit of insight. They say they're trying to make it easier for people to engage with businesses, specifically by completing purchases on the platform. So if you do Facebook or Instagram shopping and you actually pay, without leaving the app. Also messaging businesses on WhatsApp or Messenger. That is a first-party signal that can help with personalization issues, but it's not at the same scale for sure, and that's why they need to drum it up. So I'm sure there's a big push to get more small businesses and all businesses really using those tools. Question I have for you guys is, do you ever message or talk to businesses through or primarily through WhatsApp or Messenger? Is that do you use that for customer support? Anything like that? I'd just be curious, right? Like, it's definitely something that I don't know how many people do it. I might have done it once because it was the only option, but it's just something that, they need businesses' help. Businesses have to buy into Facebook and Instagram, because if Facebook and Instagram, they need the intent data, they need the purchase data, they need the transactional data. And our boy Tim Cook, the champion of all privacy, and as far as I'm concerned, a man who deserves to have a statue erected in his name because of what he's done for Apple shareholders since the untimely demise of Steve Jobs. He was like, hey, Mark, we're not doing this anymore. Okay. I feel like I have in my mind, Tim Cook has like a Dr. Phil voice, and he approaches Mark Zuckerberg like Dr. Phil approaches like how about that? Like, come outside. There's like that kind of a relationship. Mark Zuckerberg's like, I think we will serve as. Yeah, we're not going to do that, Mark. Sorry. I digress. Let's get into the metaverse, right? It's probably the only time I'm ever going to say that to somebody. Hey, do you want to go to the metaverse? Because I don't, but I'm just speaking for myself. Metaverse updates. They are launching a web version of Horizon later this year, and that will make it easier for people to step into the metaverse for the first time and have metaverse experiences. No headset required. Some other big metaverse news. This relates to creators. Mark Zuckerberg says that building out the metaverse economy and helping creators make a living working in the metaverse. Sorry, that just sounds like the end of the road for me. When I'm like, hey, what do you do for work, Mr. Franco? Well, I make a living. I work in the metaverse. I'm working in the metaverse. How you doing? I'm making a living. It's over, man. No human interaction. Come on, man. No, tapping out. Even if I thought Facebook was a 10-bagger or whatever the lingo people use, I don't support this. We need more human interaction. After what we just went through with COVID, we need human social interaction. This idea of living in the world that Facebook decides to create for us, to me, is like just a dystopian nightmare. But that's just my opinion. What's your opinion? Let me know. This is why I love YouTube. Comments, baby. Let me know. All opinions are good opinions as long as they are respectful and thoughtful. Facebook is coming out with a higher end headset, currently with the codename Project Cambria, and this is intended to eventually replace work laptops. They will seamlessly, this is a quote from them, seamlessly blend virtual reality with the physical world. Interesting. I'm definitely open-minded to something like, I'm open-minded to all this stuff. It just, right now, it's not flying with me. But what do I think? What do I actually think? And I'm saying this because I think a lot of times we let what we hear, the initial coverage of these reports, sort of shape our thinking. Something that Warren Buffett does and other investors who've studied him, I like to think I'm one of them, he does as much from the primary sources as he can. And by primary sources, I mean reading, the 10K reports, reading the actual earnings report that Facebook put out versus reading, CNBC's coverage of it first. Not to say you can't read CNBC's, but just I don't want to have any other voices or any other perspectives other than my own initially. Same thing goes with the earnings call transcript. That's where all this information came from. I stayed very late at my office last night. I was really interested to read this. And I did my highlighting. I tweeted about it just to kind of get my thoughts out of what was really important or interesting. And I've had some time to, a little time to let it marinate. So, look, here's what I think. I look at stocks as anyone should look at stocks. They're pieces of businesses. And I only want to own pieces of great businesses that I think can have better than average returns over a long period of time. Now, those companies are hard to find. There's a lot of ways you can go wrong doing that. Sometimes just the best approach is passive index, and certainly a very strong or a very large percentage of my portfolio is passive index. But Facebook, to be fair, Facebook stock has allowed me to outperform the market, on average for a long period of time because I, for many years, was very bullish and loaded up on the stock. So I don't have anything against it. Facebook stock has done nothing wrong to me. I have lots of admiration and respect for it. And Facebook, look, they still have a strong core business. Their ads business is not going anywhere. It is very much, it's there. And digital advertising and spend as a percentage of advertising going digital, that's still growing. It's not, the same growth rate as maybe 5 years ago, but it's still a growing space. They still have a large addressable market where they are, one of the big fish right up there with Google. There's a little overlap, but they're very different in the sense that Google is demand aggregation, whereas Facebook is demand generation. What I mean by that, guys, if I go on Google and I'm looking for, let's say, some new product that comes out like Metaverse goggles, right? I type in Metaverse goggles, an ad shows up that Google serves me, but I didn't know to search Metaverse goggles until somebody made me aware of what that even was, that was a thing. Someone made me want to have an interest in that. Someone made me aware, and therefore, awareness precedes trial. That demand that has to exist, well, that's coming from a demand generating channel like Facebook. So advertisers need channels like that. They need the channels where you can, create brand awareness, where you can create desire that didn't exist previously. You can create knowledge that didn't exist previously. Come up with names for things that people didn't have in their vernacular before. That's demand generating advertising. And, Facebook, that is, still the big fish in terms of digital. It's still the big fish, but they are living in a world where the landscape is completely changing, and, their end all be all is coming from people that make decisions with companies' advertising budgets. And right now, the name of the game is diversification, meaning hey, we put a lot of eggs in the Facebook basket. It did great. But I think with all these changes, hey, let's put a little money over on a podcast. Cool. Let's do a little bit of direct mail. Cool. It's not that they weren't doing that before, but there's just not the same kind of like, hey, how do we spend more money on Facebook? Because it works so well. They have so much scale. It's a different ballgame. And Facebook's fine because these privacy changes have affected other businesses too, other ad businesses, Twitter, Snap, you name it. But Facebook is the most affected because Facebook was the dominant player. They had the moat as far as I'm concerned. And these earnings, even if things are a little bit upbeat right now, it shows me what happens when when the durability of a company's competitive advantage is removed. Facebook does not have a durable competitive advantage. They have a competitive advantage, but it is losing. It's losing but the forces that protect that advantage, the stability of the moat, it's rapidly changing. And it's amazing to me when you look back at it. It's just one privacy change by Apple. Just, hey, now Facebook's changing their name. That's another thing. And this is definitely like a heuristic, but people that are just crushing it at anything, they don't usually change their name, right? It doesn't mean that Facebook can't have more success. I'm not trying to predict the future, but I'm looking at right now. When you have to change your name, when you do a rebrand, plenty of companies diversify their lines of products and come out with different lines of businesses. And, that's part of being a business that lasts a long time. You have to keep evolving and adapting, but they don't often completely change their name. Now, it's not only because of Apple, but it's also in part probably because of another issue with Facebook, which is Facebook doesn't have a lot of, hasn't done a good job of keeping people's trust. And I think about something like the Metaverse, where you're literally like going into an immersive experience. I don't know if I trust that one as much, even if it's not rational for me to not trust it. Facebook has not done a good job of easing people's concerns about privacy, and that's in part illustrated by how Apple was able just to control this narrative and say, hey, we believe privacy is a human right, and Facebook violates that human right. We don't agree with this. Apple was able to take a stand. It was a brilliant marketing move from a branding perspective. It was brilliant because it put Facebook on the defensive. And even though Facebook is right to complain and say, hey, this is bad for small businesses, and because it is bad for small businesses, let it be known, it is. Facebook struggling to figure out what to do. So are small businesses that were having, a much easier time than they ever had before reaching new customers and getting customers who would actually not just reaching new customers, rather reaching people that would become customers, that would become paying customers, good customers, not because they were luring them with deals and things like that, like just putting the right ad in front of the people who would be most likely to respond positively to it. And by respond positively, I mean actually buy the thing they're looking at, within a 7-day period. I mean, talk about an advantage. So Apple in a way has killed that advantage for small businesses. So, it is what it is. And I think as investors, this is something, again, my personal take, being objective is critical. We can never be objective enough. And I'm just trying to be as objective as possible. I don't think the best days are ahead of it. When I look at a business that has a great past, that means it passes the first test. I don't want to buy any business that's had a lousy past and is promising a bright future, but I genuinely do not believe that Facebook's best days are ahead of it. Doesn't mean it won't make money. It doesn't mean that, they're not going to, look, they still have a very healthy cash producing business, but you have to have a lot of things go right for this new phase of Facebook to really pay off in the way that I think the first phase did for investors. That's just my take, not investment advice. I just want to be honest with you. I want to be thoughtful. I want to be thorough. And like I said, I want to be objective. For CMQ Investing, my name is Chris Franco. Thanks for watching. We'll talk soon.